Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show, where designers discuss design. We're on episode 6, and so we're going to be talking about art and design. And actually, yes, to start off our show, and that is Jordan Goddard. And he is with Collapse Games. He had a fantastic and interesting contest that he just ran, and I'm going to let him explain what was the contest. Jordan.
Yeah, so basically what we wanted to do was we set out to design a contest that would put all the designers in it on an equal playing ground, right? So we sent everyone an identical pack of 10 people an identical pack of components. So they all got the same gems, the same cubes, card stands, cards, and blank dice. And then they all had 10 days to finish a game design from concept all the way to prototyping and then film a video. Then they put that video up on YouTube, and then we judge them over the resulting couple of weeks. So
that sounds great. No, I was excited. The minute I saw the contest, I thought it was a really interesting sounding contest, and something that we here at Meeple Syrup are all about is encouraging design, learning from each other. So I'm excited about that. Each of us got to actually check out some of the designs. Sen, why don't you tell us about one or two of the designs you noticed?
Hello. Well, I'm taking a look at the list right now, and I'll show it on screen a little bit later. The whole list. There's at least 10. Is there more than 10, Jordan, or just 10?
It's exactly 10.
Okay.
Exactly 10.
Yeah, because I thought it was 10 days, 10 designers. So the ones that I was quite interested in were Centrifuge. Centrifuge was really interesting to me just because of the mechanic. It's one of the ones that, and I'll be honest and blunt, that my main judging criteria is, does this interest me at all in playing it? And I think Daryl has a different one, or he skewed it a little bit, which is interesting. But my main one was, would this interested me at all? And Centrifuge is one that really kind of tickled my fancy in terms of getting cubes, putting them through the centrifuge, which was a really innovative use of the card stand, or well, not the card standers, and then the cards that you could take and turn the orientation from. I just almost about picked up a square card to show you orientation, but you could turn it from this way to this way, and it meant different things. So that was really interesting to me. Torque I liked, not just because I know JR personally, that's not why I chose that as one to look for, but because I love word games, and I don't think there's enough of them out there that are cool. And that Torque was a really interesting way to use dice in a word game plus cards in a word game and to emphasize speed. So I like that. And then the last one that I think we all enjoyed was Total Party Wipeout, which was a dungeon crawler that was done just in a really neat way, and it captured the feel of a dungeon crawler without the bogging down that I usually find in most dungeon crawlers. So Dylan, why don't you talk about the ones that you liked?
Well, I think that there was kind of general agreement about Total Party Wipeout. It was one of those ones that I kind of wanted to reach into the computer and just play. I wanted to sit down and play with them. But I was interested in part by proximity, simply because of the innovative way that they used all of the materials. And a big thing, I think, for me is immersion, but also just given the fact that they were given a very limited set of materials, how far could they stretch those things? And how did that constraint really play into their designs? So like Centrifuge, that was a really cool design. I thought that the core mechanic was really nifty. But looking back at my notes here, Space Privateer was another big one for me. I actually noted down that there was a kind of an unexpectedly high amount of theme in that one for the components that were used. So I mean, it was really great. It was fun to review all of the materials and go through the rules and just see the amount of inventiveness that came from a few bits of cardboard and plastic. But Daryl, did you give all of your favorites, or are you being coy?
I'm being coy because I'm looking forward to our after show where we'll talk a little bit about what we thought of the games. But I'm going to throw it back to Jordan because we have Jordan here live on the show. And why don't you tell us a little bit, because you were mentioning this cool prize pack and what's going to happen for the winners. Can you explain that to our viewers?
So there's a lot of things that we tried to drum up. First of all, let me talk about kind of like globally why we did the contest, right? Because we can talk about like what drives a game theme or mechanics, or we can talk about all the decisions that get made, and when we did, that was important for us to try to pull some of those decisions out, see what create, because really what the game judges or what the contest judges is pure creativity. You all have the same stuff, you all have access to the same period of time. The only variable is creativity, right? And so what we wanted to do was to create a kind of contest that I would really want to be in. I wish I could have been in it. Actually, I had a lot of ideas, and I think that sometimes as designers or just in life in general, we focus too much on what we can do instead of building what we think other people would want to do and stretching for that. So that was the whole point behind the contest, is like, let's focus on something that would be awesome and then find a way logistically to pull it off. Now, that being said, the prize pack came together. It actually started kind of humbly, right? We were going to launch our game Collapse, and we thought, well, we'll throw out a free game of Collapse and a really cool prototyping kit that we put together. And then I just got approached, actually, by the designer of a game called Drinking Dice. It's actually not a game. It's just a set of dice, and then some mini games come with it. So he just wrapped his Kickstarter up 2 days ago, and he wanted to invite the first, second, and third to design mini games that would be published and sent out with the dice. So as a really cool extra, the top 3 are going to be invited to have their names put on the box and get design credits and be shipped and published with a game that just wrapped up their Kickstarter. So really cool things there, and I'm really excited to get to have that as part of it.
We just had someone just pop on the show, so I'm
I love
going to acknowledge it and then mute and hide him. But we've been having technical difficulties with trying to get Josh Cappel hooked up, who's going to be later on the show. So sorry for that interruption. I hope everyone caught that. We have this great prize pack, and I also want to mention one thing that Meeple Syrup's going to add to this. We're going to have the winner on our show later on and talk to them all about design. So we'll try to book what's convenient for the winner, but we're looking forward to giving them a little exposure and chatting with them and hearing more about their design.
Sorry about that technical difficulty. So I wanted to bring this up, which is...
Yeah, which was really...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jordan. I think you are delayed a little bit, so go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say that's really kind of you guys to do that. That's really cool. To get the winner up there to be able to talk about their process is going to be a lot of fun for me to hear as well. So I look forward to that. Yeah,
100%. We want to give designers a forum that they may not otherwise have. That's one of the purposes of Meeple Syrup, actually, is to put the focus on, a little bit of the focus anyways, on the designer themselves. We see a lot of people talking about the games. We actually see the reviewers getting a lot of hype. But really, at the end of the day, if the designers aren't doing design, then there's nothing to actually talk about. So we want to give something back to the designers. I would like you to talk, actually, while we have this on screen, Jordan, if you can see that. Tell us a little bit about each of the games. What was the coolest thing about each of these 10 games? Just one thing.
Okay, so that's going to be hard because they were all amazing. And if you guys, because if you guys watch them, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But let's go through them. So Centrifuge by Isaac Shalev. There, as you alluded to, the core mechanic is awesome. I mean, everybody, when they see variables in gems, think alchemy or think, building and transforming gems. And he did it in a way that was really strong, and I really appreciated the finesse that he did that with. Because it's so simple, but it's so smart in the way that things are moved. So I valued that.
That's awesome.
Proximity.
Keep going, but make them quick.
Okay, Proximity, really inventive in terms of using 3D space and moving the items around. Star Eaters, I loved that one ship triggers another ship, and you get this kind of rolling effect, and there's a lot of strategy, but the game plays out differently every time.
Yep.
Twerk was tremendously inventive in terms of it's a word game with dice and cards, and there's all these like byword letters. I don't know. It's lots of really cool thoughts there. Total Party Wipeout, a dungeon crawler with 20 cards, and they transformed the dice or the cubes in a way that I didn't expect.
Yes, I like that a lot.
Yeah, Cyber Heist actually transformed the card stands into like battle tanks. Like, who saw that coming?
Yeah.
Not me. Portal Raiders, this idea that you're like, first of all, he's a cool guy. I mean, he incorporated his daughter, who did all the art, and then his daughter thought his game, could use some improvement, so she submitted her own game, and it was this whole family thing. So I thought that was cool.
I actually put a note on there that his daughter giggling at his...
So awesome, right? So Space Privateer from Bric-a-Brac, he did a wonderful job as well. A really cool, like you said, pretty theme deep. Candyman by Jack and Pack Pack, again another family affair. They both worked on that game, and it was really cool to see that. And then Blend Off, which wasn't actually in the original competition, but submitted one anyway, and then someone didn't submit, so we put him in there. I loved Blend It Like Becca's, that whole world. So I thought that was a really cool, really cool idea.
Very thematic. I loved his explanation of just like the whole like workers, and yeah, it was a great video of him just like getting right into that whole world of blending.
Yeah, he killed it.
So without any further ado, who's the winner? Who's the top three?
Right. Okay. So top three. Number 3. We're gonna give this one to Twerk. The reason for Twerk is, dang, that's a cool idea. That you're using like these vowels, and that there's. I could go on. I won't. But I really like that design, and so he takes the number 3 spot because he reinvented what those components could do in a way that I did not expect. So number 2 goes to Isaac Shalev for Centrifuge. Centrifuge again. I think we've all talked about this. It's so much more strategy than some of the other games in terms of, and that you use both sides of the cards, so now you don't have 20 cards, you have 40 cards, or double whatever the original number was. This idea that, and then you have to memorize them, and so it's a really complicated, cool game that's super simple, so I really valued that. And then number 1, and you both liked it as well, Total Party Wipeout. So good, and here's the thing, people are going to say that it's because the art is adorable, and the art is adorable, right? But that's not why. What they did in their game is they transformed components in a way that I didn't expect. You've got these little cubes, and the cubes now become dice, but the dice are also workers, and that they're using them to like roll and get attack values, and then the big custom dice are also rolling through the dungeon, and I just did not expect that much of a quality of a game to come out and be so simple and accessible, but also so interesting. So.
Okay, great. Let's talk about this. What is this? Can you see that?
Hello. Yes. So that is our Kickstarter. So besides hosting a design contest, and we've also been working on I don't get much sleep this week, but we're also hosting our Kickstarter for a game we designed. It's a really neat game, and I think, Daryl, you got a chance to play it at Gen Con, or at least sit in on it while we were playing. I don't remember. But either way, it's a deck-building game about prepping for the end of the world. We set out to make a game that had a really well-integrated theme and mechanic. And when you look at the mechanic of deck building, you're creating an engine and buying and hoarding and like keeping and storing, and that lend itself perfectly to the 2 weeks before the world ends, right? Where you're trying to grab everything before everything falls apart. And so we incorporated into that some unique mechanics in terms of fortifying your home and some PvP action and some other stuff like that. So we're pretty proud of it, and it funded in 48 hours, so apparently a couple people like it, so that's really cool.
That's amazing. Congratulations. So thank you so much for announcing your winners on the show. We'll do our best to try to get at least the designers for Total Party Wipeout on the show, maybe even some of the others. And again, we hope to have you on the show. I know for myself, I was really impressed not only with your game, but also the art, because you are a graphic art designer, and so I was really blown away by that, and that kind of leads into the rest of our show, because we're going to be talking to a couple of designers / artists as well. So thank you, Jordan, for being on the show. And any just quick advice you would give to designers out there?
Oh man, I think I gave it earlier. I would say don't focus on what you can do. Focus on what you would want or what other people would want, and make that happen. Because too often we focus on what's accessible versus what is awesome, and it's only when you start focusing on what you want that you really start to make good strides in your design.
That's great. Well, thank you, Jordan. Have a good night, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks
Bye.
a lot.
Dylan, why don't you dropped out there for a second, but we're glad you're back because we want you to introduce our guest. Oh, are you there, Dylan?
I'm still here.
Perfect. Why don't you introduce one of our guests as they come back, and then Sam can introduce the other.
Wanted to introduce Stephen Sauer, who's currently, well, he's one of your main collaborators. Most recently on Caffeine Rush. We'll be talking about that a little later, but a man that I respect for his kind of dedication to handcraft worked kind of artistic artifacts. The Aberrant Apothecary himself. Absolutely brilliant work that he does.
Awesome. Hey
That is
guys,
awesome.
how you doing?
Good. And I'm going to introduce one of my partners in crime. I have quite a few, actually, which is a little promiscuous of me, I guess. But the man who is coming up next is the one, the only Joshua Cappel. Josh is muted, so I'm going to I don't even know if I can unmute him. Josh, you're going to have to unmute yourself or figure out how to unmute
It might be Josh. Josh, press the mute button up here.
right up there. There you go.
Oh, hello.
Hey, there's Josh. Hello. So, for those of you who don't know Josh's work, you can see it on such titles as, well, Belfort, of course, our upcoming game together, Rock, Paper, Wizards, coming out on Gameland next year. But things like 1960, things like Bomb Squad Academy, Kings of Air and Steam, Pandemic, the original Pandemic art, well, not the art, but all the layout and stuff was done through Josh. Pirates vs. Dinosaur, and he's also an excellent designer in his own right, and he came up with that wonderful game called Wasabi, published by Z-Man with his cousin Adam. So welcome to both of you. Oh yeah, and what about that game right there? Hold that up again, Steven. The Walled City, which is the game that is designed by Daryl and Steven, and the art is done by Josh. So we have a little bit of a unholy triumvirate here. And if J. Cormier was here, we'd have the holy triumvirate, and we'd go to war. But Dylan being the neutral man in the corner, what do we want to talk about tonight? What do we want to talk about, Dylan?
Where do we start? I mean, I actually there's a lot of things that I know we can talk about specifically with Josh and really get his blood boiling. But let's save that to later. Let's talk about the actual the art of doing starting from the very beginning. Let's talk about building a prototype. I know for a fact, like me, I cannot stand to build an ugly prototype. So like let's talk about Stephen. Can you even make an ugly prototype, or do you like carve it out of wood and like handcraft every single piece?
I've got some of that wood stuff here. It's really hard for me to not dive into the art, and often I'll fully art out an entire game before I've even figured out how it works. And I know a lot of you who've play tested my games can attest to that. Beautiful, looks beautiful, hot mess. But yeah, I'm a sucker for prototype art.
I'm right there on the same level with you. I can't stand not having good art. But Josh? I gotta ask the same question. Come on, like, can you stand to see bad art in a prototype?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I'm the other way around from Stephen. I start with paper, scribbles with pencil, and try to make it as functional as possible before spending time making it beautiful. Beautiful kind of comes midway in the process. Not last, definitely not, because I think that the visuals definitely help drive the function of the game. But function absolutely first. I just make sure that it works before I spend any time on the artwork. I hate to have to undo artwork.
Absolutely. And just jumping in this as well, when it comes to, you mentioned functionality, I'm going to throw this back to Stephen. What are some examples of making a game functional why does that matter, and like how do you do that with art with a prototype?
Well, I think art can be really tied to function, because when you're trying to figure out mechanics for a game, a lot of how those mechanics are resolved can be like visually based, and I think it's important to like actually lay out the sort of visuals for how it's going to work, because I think it can be really tied to the mechanics in a lot of circumstances. So.
And I mean, from the perspective of actually attempting to set up a game, sometimes the visuals themselves can lead on to further mechanical developments. Josh, have you ever had a situation where that's happened?
Definitely. I mean, my philosophy with game art is that it should be part of the game function. So it shouldn't just be beautifying the game. It should be helping to improve the quality of the game. So a lot of times when I'm working on a game for a publisher, I will suggest a component change or something that is going to not change the actual content of how the game works, but change how the game is expressed to the player. And that will sometimes mean that we need to explain the rules a little bit differently while keeping them achieving the same thing. But component changes can definitely drive the game into a slightly different direction, just so that the experience is solidified into more of what it wants to be. The artwork is the thing that's going to pull the player further into the game. So if you can make the artwork do that through its visuals and also through its structure, then you're kind of hitting it right on. You're hitting the nail right on the head when you can walk that fine line.
Excellent answer.
I just wanted to follow up on that. One of the things with prototypes that I find is, and one of the reasons I think I enjoyed working the artwork so much in the early stages, is that I like to remove that as an obstacle for players that are playtesting, because sometimes some people just can't see through the sketch lines and the hand-drawn pencil work and stuff. And if you can just get rid of that being a problem, they can focus a lot more on the mechanics sometimes, I find. So.
Sure. I wanted to ask you guys, so Stephen, still
Yep.
staying with you, what do you think, or can you define the difference between graphic design and illustration for some people out there who might lump it all under artwork, and where it comes into prototyping?
Well, I think prototyping would be more focused around graphic design and how you lay out stuff. The actual artwork comes when you're in the finishing stages of the product, I think. Because like the prototyping, it's all about what goes where and how they all weave together and stuff like that, and that's really has to do with laying out your art properly.
Yeah. Illustration is really an element of the graphic design. It's kind of a subsidiary of the graphic design. The graphic design is the just what the game looks like, and the illustration is just one component of what the game looks like. So there's iconography, there is even flavor text and content like that I consider to be part of the appearance of a game. And so graphic design is what the game looks like, and then illustration is one of the sort of tools in the toolbox of graphic design.
So Josh, staying with you, I kind of want to say the second most asked question after should I copyright my game is, does my prototype art have to be good before I submit it? Go.
Your prototype art does not have to be good. I mean, a lot of publishers say that they can see through art, and they're not looking for art. They're looking for gameplay. They're looking for mechanisms that work. I believe that they believe that when they say it, and I believe that we all think as game designers that we can see through that. But don't kid yourself when that you're not influenced by the art on a game. If a prototype has art that is appealing, if a prototype has art that supports the functional attributes of the game, then it's going to improve the play experience. When the play experience is improved, then the reception is improved. And I don't know, you don't need it, but it don't hurt.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate that. I'm just going to give a little quick shout out for anyone who's watching. We just want to give a plug. If you're on Twitter, feel free to send your questions. We'll try to get a few of those on the show. And our Twitter is @Meeple Syrup. On that note, when it comes to art. There's also this idea of promotions. How do you like get your art out there? I know, Stephen. I'm going to point this first to you because you have your first art out there. But I'd also like to maybe share Josh to share his experience of how did you first get involved with getting your art out there with board games. So, Stephen, what about you first?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone out there doesn't know who I am because I haven't really done this. I'm just starting to do this now, and I hope that my being here can be an inspiration for people to get out of your house and working at night and stuff like that, and just try to start doing art for games. If that's what you want to do, just start doing it. For me, I think it all started a few years ago when I was going to Fan Expo. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have a booth in Artist Alley, and then I've decided the next year I'm just going to make a game for it, and I started doing my own art and started putting it out there, and that's some of the stuff that Dylan's referring to before, my really weird handmade games that I got behind me here and stuff. And then from there, like, it's just you just gotta just do it, really. Like, just don't be afraid is sort of my best advice to start.
I'm going to show this picture.
Man.
This is one of... and Steven's laughing because this is my first introduction to Stephen Sauer, by the way. This particular game.
Yeah.
I saw this at HammerCon.
HammerCon 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
Many more than that. It was like, 3 years ago probably. And he pulled this thing out, and I was instantly drawn into this world. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't really care.
Look at it.
Because the art was so engaging. And I think what Joshua was talking about, that good art makes a good game better, right? It doesn't make a game, but it makes a good game better, and it makes you interested enough to give it a shot, which is something that a lot of other games could use. So I'm really a proponent of don't waste time on illustration. Spend all your time on the graphic design and layout. And then things like this come along and just blow my mind away. I've shown this to many people, by the way, Stephen, and they're saying, where is this? Where can I get this? Just because the look of it is just so...
I know, it is really exciting, yeah. And the best part is, like, you guys can't feel it, but it's I printed on paper, and then I glued that to canvas, and I coated it so you can roll right up, and it's like this incredible texture, and like, anyways.
He's an artisan. He's really truly an artisan.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember like noticing Stephen for the first time like 3 years ago at HammerCon in Hamilton, and he had was it custom-made wooden chessboards?
Oh, I can show those too.
Exactly, but something with it was like bumpy and different pieces of wood, hand cut and assembled all together, and he had a big wooden steampunky sort of case that held it all. Yeah, you're crazy, man.
Yeah,
But
1 second. Let
Unbelievable.
me get that up here. Here we
I
go.
totally dig it, though. That's so awesome.
Here it is.
Oh, man. Oh, you guys are killing me with these old pictures.
So this is Stormlands. And as you guys can tell, we're all actually quite close friends. But Stormlands is kind of like a checkers on a board. These are handmade. Stephen sources like refurbished woods from floors and churches and joists and stuff, and then cuts it and fabricates all these things
And
out
makes
of
you
all
want
this
to play
stuff.
it.
Yeah, and that's right, Joshua. You're right. It makes you want to play it. So there's something to be said for crafting. You get noticed. So if you're a graphic designer out there or a crafter out there, if you do paper craft, if you do any of that kind of stuff, if you can make your prototype just that much more interesting by putting a little more love and effort into it, do it. That's fine. Just not.
Right, now you're not going to see a publisher make that.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I
Now
guess
that
so.
there's Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
But still, the great thing about Stephen's work is, like, you can tell that if you count up from the lower left corner 3 spaces and then in 2 spaces, that particular block has got its own life story. Like,
It really does.
You can tell that from the way it's being built. But, like, not just building your own stuff from the perspective of getting old wood from church floorboards. Like, I mean, a lot of the graphic art skills and techniques, I'm going to throw this to Josh, have got to do and have got to really put you ahead of other illustrators and other people kind of working within making prototypes for prototyping games.
Yeah, definitely. It's a. I mean, I'm a trained graphic designer, standard graphic design. I went to Seneca in Toronto, and it definitely helps. I mean, it's such a valuable skill set when you're creating your own pieces. I know a lot of game designers that I'm colleagues with and friends with struggle to make their ideas happen on paper, and sometimes they achieve it anyway through brute force and pencil and stickers and just doing it all by hand, scissors, and like really getting into the trenches and making what they need to. When I can sort of shortcut it on the computer and whip it together pretty quickly to look pretty professional pretty fast. So it's an amazing asset, and I'm so blessed to have it. But the way I got started in game art was that I had this set of talents, and I also was very interested in game design. I think that's all of our common stories, that we've always tinkered with game design, and we loved games and growing up. And I got involved on a forum online called the Board Game Designers Forum, and this is where I met Dylan for the first time many years ago.
In 2006.
Was it 06?
We've known each other for 8 years.
That's pretty crazy.
This is insane. Anyway, yeah.
And we met for the first time this year, which is really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that forum, I met a bunch of other aspiring game designers. That place is a wonderful place where the overarching goal of everyone there is to sort of get your games into a state where you can pitch it to publishers. And it's very neophyte people mostly. Trying to sort of help each other out and take those shots in the dark and figure out exactly how to make this happen, because we all love games. Now, my goal was, of course, to make games, but also to do art for games. So what I would do was I would keep an ear to the ground and see whenever somebody had said, well, I've got this game and a publisher is interested in it, or I'm thinking about sending this to XYZ publisher. I would drop that person a note and say, hey, do you mind if I put together some art for your game, some promo art for the game? And if the publisher digs it, then maybe the publisher can contact me and say that I could do the art for the game if it does get signed. So I did that countless times, and then finally somebody on the forum was getting a game published through a company called ASA Games, and the game was Fallen Lands and Conquest of the Fallen Lands, my very first game. It was kind of a hodgepodge of illustration techniques, but it was I don't know. It was my very first game, and it holds a special place in my heart.
And on our screens right now.
Look, Fallen Lands, yeah. See, I think I've come a long way since then. Very smashed together. Not the best illustration in the world. I mean, I don't believe that I'm the greatest illustrator in the world. I have my style, and there's lots of guys that are a lot better than me. But I bring it together in the graphic design and in the game functionality. So I think that's where I shine. Fallen Lands was the very first seed of it, and I was pretty much a self-publishing deal. Like a designer got together with some people that wanted to form a startup publishing company. But the first sort of real game that I managed to get my hooks into was one called Gios for Z-Man Games, and that was kind of the start of my career proper as a game artist, because I did a good job on that for Z-Man Games, and then they kept hiring me, and then from then it just kind of kept rolling. Now I don't really need to look for work anymore. Work kind of comes in my direction, which is amazing.
Okay, Stephen, I wanted to talk to you about work. What do you do for your day job?
I used to work in television, and I think that's where I went to art school, worked in television doing video editing and graphic stuff there. And that's really where I honed my Photoshop skills, all self-taught stuff. From there, I now work for my wife's stores downtown Toronto here, and I do magazine layouts, web design, stuff like that. That's my background.
Would your hope be to actually work full-time in game design, game art?
I think my best case scenario would be to work like 75% time. I'm always going to have a place for my wife. It's our family store essentially.
Well, yeah,
but you know, I think that I would love to take the next step and just always have a project I'm working on for a publisher. That would just be fantastic.
Now, Josh, you are full-time doing this, correct?
I am indeed. I am a graphic designer and game artist. Probably 90% of my work at this point is game art. So I'll do occasional non-game jobs for old clients from back in the day before I did game art, but I really don't look for non-game work anymore. It's all game all the time. And now even my focus with some success in game design lately, my focus is kind of pivoting a little bit more towards game design, where I actually spend a part of my workday on game design, and then the majority still of my workday on game art. So,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Daryl.
Yeah, well, I just you're talking about game design, especially the production side. Like often the artist joins in on the process later in, like the game's already been made. So let's imagine, some of our viewers, they have a game and they're curious, what happens next? What are the stages that their game goes through when they maybe sign it and it goes off to some artist? Maybe Josh, if you could talk about when a game comes to you, what do you do with it? What's that like?
I get games in all kinds of states. I mean, do you mean when I get a game from a publisher, where a publisher says we're doing this game, and like a known publisher? Because sure. I get games in all levels and all types. People out of the blue who designed the next greatest Monopoly will ask me if I want to do the art for their game. But when a known publisher or somebody who seems like they know what they're talking about approaches me with a game, the first thing I do is I ask for everything that they have on the game. I want to see all the prototype components, all the PDFs, print and play, whatever they have, and particularly the rules, so that I can evaluate it myself and see if it's something that I would want to put my name on, and see if it's something that is a good game, because I can make a good game great, or I can make a good game better, but I, like you said, I can't make a bad game good just by applying my work to it. And I want the games that I work on to be successful games. So I'd rather work on games that I believe in, and that I believe have a shot at being enjoyed by people. So to answer your question, what the first thing I do is to evaluate the game, and then to, if I feel like it's a game that I do want to work on, then start negotiating with the publisher to figure out exactly where we're going to sit on compensation for working on the game.
I actually kind of want to take this in a direction that I know we've spoken to Josh offline about stuff like this, but I wanted to pass something over to Stephen, because obviously you have artistic tendencies. Obviously you've displayed that in various media. But since you have artistic tendencies, don't you have friends who have got other artistic projects on the side who say, could you do a little something for me, just, pro bono? So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I know that Josh is going to cut right in, because he's got something to say.
No, I don't have any strong feelings on that matter.
But
for myself, I often have people talk to me about doing things, and in the last couple of years, I've really cut back and been very assertive and strong in myself, and just said, you know what, I'm trying to find a balance in my life between work and family and doing this stuff as a passion, and I just can't take on these projects anymore. I can only fit so many things in my life, and I want to do the stuff that I love and makes me happy in my spare time, so for myself, I've had to cut back on my offering of help on projects. Josh?
Yeah, for me, those days kind of have seemed to have gone away. I mean, I think I managed to put that in the grave by explaining to people that that it's my job, and this is something that I do, and just because I can do it doesn't mean that I can hand it out for free. You don't get you don't go to a hospital and get surgery for free just because you know the doctor. Well, maybe you do, because there's free healthcare. But the analogy is really not working out for me in this case. You wouldn't ask like your friend the plumber to work for free, or you wouldn't ask an electrician to work for free. I guess that works better. Anyway, listen, if a close friend or a family member needs something, and it's not something for their business, it's not something for somebody that can afford to pay it, then of course I'm going to help out my friend, I'm going to help out my neighbor, I'm going to help out my family, of course. But at the same time, you as the artist have to decide where that fine line is between being taken advantage of and helping somebody out. So if you feel like it's one case or the other, then you should go in one direction or the other. There's an image that's kind of circulating online right now that shows, should I work for free? And I wish that I could put it up on the screen right now, but I don't have access to it. It's like a sort of a funny poster that explains when you should, as a designer, work for free and when you shouldn't. And it's if anyone can like search for that and check it out, you'll see that it's exactly on the nose. It says when you should and when you shouldn't.
All right, if somebody can find that for me, I'll post it up. I wanted to bring it back to what seems to be kind of, for most of us anyways, a little bit of the way the industry is turning towards Kickstarter. So I believe most of us have been in a Kickstarter campaign in some way, shape, or form, but I've never done it as the artist. And I wanted to know what that is like. What is it like producing art under pressure like that? Stephen, you've done some custom-made stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Give it to the king.
Yeah, so my artistic, I helped out in Give It to the King by Francois Valentin, and I produced some custom wooden game boards, so like building some of those wooden kind of things that I love doing. And when I accepted the project, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I love making things, and I'd love to help a friend out, and I got paid for it, but I'm like, I just wanted to help this project out. And then when it came down to actually making them on the time schedule, then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this is difficult. So with Kickstarter, there's very concrete deadlines, and it's, as Josh is going to definitely talk about, like, it's hard to meet those deadlines for sure.
Josh, can you tell me about, I don't know where you are, Josh, but I can't see your picture. Oh, nope, that's me. Where are you? But maybe we can hear your voice. So, Josh, can you tell me about how, when you do Kickstarter work, how the different tiers have been worked into your workflow?
Sorry, you were breaking up on me. Could you ask that again?
Okay, sorry. So your workflow, I know your workflow pattern quite well,
Yeah.
but when Kickstarter comes in and they have a different bent on that, say like a pledge level gets taken that you didn't expect to get taken that requires custom art, how does that affect your workflow as a graphic designer?
Well, we're all learning Kickstarter. The whole board game industry has really zeroed in on it in the past couple of years, and it's been a learning experience for everyone, from the backers to the publishers to the game designers to the artists as well. And it was really a mess to begin with. It kind of flipped workflow on its head, because typically when creating a board game pre-Kickstarter, I would always start with functional components, and you start with the box size, and that's where you sort of ground your layout, and then from there you create everything that's going to go in the box functionally, and then you create what everything's going to look like inside the box, and then you can create what the box looks like on the outside. I always like to explore the componentry of the game and figure out what the game is going to be and look like and be on the table, and then after that's all done, then I can use what we've created as a team, me, the designers, and the publisher and myself, use that together to decide what the box is going to look like at the end of it. Well, that doesn't fly on Kickstarter. On Kickstarter, you need the box image right up front at first. So that was a really weird backflip for me to have to do. It's just the workflow on Kickstarter is completely reversed from how I used to create board games. You go for the big flashy billboard images first before you delve into the minutia of what fits on what punch board, which is kind of the other way around.
Here, I'll pass to you.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, and you've already started talking about workflow. I want to ask Stephen, like, a lot of the times people think art just boom, you're done. How long does art take? What's the magic answer for how long does art take to make?
Yeah, it's tough, and I think it's also tough depending on your perfection level. I have a lot of trouble just being okay with things to send them out. Things just have to be perfect for me, and what that means is just so many versions after versions with so many minor tweaking, and it takes so much longer than you think to get the finished art out. Yeah, that's basically the answer. Way longer than you think.
Way longer than you think. That's good.
Can you give a few examples of just like even, and maybe Josh, you could do this. because you have a fairly wide portfolio of games. How long does it take for a board? How long does it take for a card? How long? What are those things that you're trying to kind of guesstimate when you're trying to say how long a project's going to take?
Well, it's all. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I have a board up right now. This is Londonderry, but this is Steven's version of Londonderry. I'll have to find your version, Josh. Sorry.
So this is a prototype art. Yeah, this is version 3 of the 3rd sort of overall design change we did for the prototype art. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
And then Josh has done different things with that board, so I'm going to have to find it.
Well, why don't I just pull it out?
Okay. Here we go. Here's Steven pulling stuff out.
Next on Out of Context Theater.
This is the second time he's pulled stuff out, and the first one I wanted to, I wanted to play with. It's just, this is just too exciting.
Okay, so that's
Look at
Josh's
that.
version of the board for Walled City. So Steven, can you tell us how long it took you to do the initial prototype art?
Well, we would often it starts in the first stages with like just Google image searching stuff. Like really, you just want to get the idea and the flavor for something. So you're just ripping stuff off the internet and just cutting and pasting it together as quick as you can. Then you start adding iconography, and then you're like, oh, you know what? I think we need to start making this look a bit better. So that first initial stage, usually we can cobble something together in a quick night. And then the next version will take a couple nights, and then each version after that gets a little bit longer because you're adding that much more detail and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
And so Joshua, how long did it take you to finish the final version of the Londonderry board?
Oh boy, a long time. Longer than you'd think.
And why?
Walled City has 2 boards, so I had to take each into account when designing the other because they share components. So they needed to both sides of the board needed to use the same set of components, so they needed to kind of rely on each other design-wise. So I was designing 2 game boards at once for the Walled City, and it took I don't even know. My wife always tells me I should track the hours that I spend on things, and I fail to do it. It would probably help me deliver quotes in the future if I did. But, I'll start. I'll always start.
If it takes longer than you think, it'll cost more than you think. It's easy. I mean, the math is pretty simple.
Yeah, that's true. But then there's a breaking point at which a publisher won't pay for the thousands of hours.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, just in terms of time, I don't have the experience Josh does. The only art I've worked on for a publisher has been for a card game. For Caffeine Rush, and in terms of time-wise for that, it's just a game with, maybe maybe like 50 unique cards in it, and a game box. So not a lot of components. And I started that project at the end of August, hoping to be done in a few weeks, and it's now the middle of October, and I'm just finishing right now. Mm-hmm. So even with a few components, it can take a long time.
But it looks great. There it is on screen.
It is beautiful. It is a piece of art. I really love it. And actually, I don't know if you've got the actual kind of coffee cup logo there as well. That's just gravy.
Oh no, I didn't pull that. I didn't pull that.
That's all right.
The one with the latte.
Yeah, it's great. But
beautiful.
I think to summarize, we can simply say art is hard. Art is work, and there are so many parts to simply doing art. Like there are people who are superb at layout, people who are superb at illustration, people who can actually pull everything together in a graphic design. But I kind of wanted to talk about something that has confused me a little bit. There's, especially in the artisans, and we're all game artisans of Canada here. There are loads and loads of people who are graphic designers who are into game design, and oddly enough, theater guys. And here we've got, both of them here. It's like theater and improv and graphic designers. They're attracted to game design. So I, from my whole experiential game design, I want to first start with Stephen and ask, what kind of expression are you getting artistically out of game design?
What kind of expression? Like in terms of
it's a form of art. So taking it as a form of art. What are you getting out of this?
A lot of satisfaction, and that's why I'm doing it. There's something that is incredibly satisfying about making something and something that then in turn immerses other people into this fun experience. Like I don't do any like the improv stuff like that. So I'm not performing. So I guess this is kind of like my version of performing is making art so that other people can experience and have a great time in it. You know, that's really what you hope for. I mean, it's just that other people can enjoy your work and have a great time enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of jumping off of that, I'm going to throw this to Josh. What's it like to have now, like, even on VGG, there's, like, fans of Josh Cappell art, or, you know, there is a Josh Cappell art style that people refer to. What was that like?
It's a little weird. It's a little strange. I always feel like I am not that good at not that good at what I do, but I feel like I look at other people's illustration and paint work especially, and I feel like I can't even compete. Some days I look at the art that other people do and I just want to like put down my tools and not do it anymore. But then other days I look at that stuff and I think, well, I got to work harder and I got to get better and I have to achieve what these guys can do. And then other days I say, well, what I do is pretty awesome too. And maybe those guys look at my work and say, I wish I could do stuff the way he could. So I don't know. Like you said, there are people there who are fans of my work, and that's amazing. And I hope to get more of them, and I hope to keep bringing great artwork to people and improving games so that people can enjoy the game experience more. I don't know. I'm a lucky guy that I get to do these two things that I love: create art and create games. So I don't know. It's the best feeling in the world. How about that? Third best feeling in the world.
Excellent. So I'm not going to put the picture on me because I've got something called up, but Stephen and Josh, but starting with Stephen, I wanted to talk to you guys about rules and doing the graphic layout for rules and rewriting rules. How hard is it for you to take somebody else's rule set and make it into something presentable and do the layout for it, starting with Stephen?
Well, so far I've never had to do that with anyone else's rules. I've only had to deal with my own. And you know, it's still tough, and it's a learning experience. I've realized through looking at other people's rule books and studying what other people do well, how important a rule book is, and I think that maybe not a lot of artists will realize how important a good set of rules are, and how easy they are to follow, and how well they look, and how well they read. And it's really tough to find that to take all this wall of text and distill it down into like tiny bits that are really quickly digested and make sense. You know, Josh, I mean, you probably have a lot better experience with this. So.
Rules development and working on rule books is one of my particular strengths. It's something that I pitch specifically to publishers. I mean, I'm coming from a game design source of strength in a way that a lot of game artists don't. That is something that I compulsively can't leave alone. From the very beginning, whenever I got a rule set to lay out, I would always edit it from head to toe, every letter. Some designers and publishers supply you with a rule set that is complete and doesn't need a lot of work on it, and some provide you with a rule set that is basically just an outline of how the game works. So I devote a ton of energy and a ton of time into rulebooks, and the response has been very good. People seem to think that I lay things out and organize them in a really good way and improve the rules. So,
which is great.
Yeah, like Stephen said, I think the rules are probably the most important component in the game.
It takes a real connoisseur to kind of recognize that, because layout is often such a thankless job, and it goes to, like you're saying, it goes to the readability and the understandability of the rules. Like one of my favorite rule sets is Homesteaders, and Ariel did that one. Just the way that it's laid out, all the color coding is beautiful, but your layout for Belfort as well, just superb. So. I want to ask you about what tips have you got for layout and design of rules for understandability? I mean, we're talking to someone who's well seasoned here.
Tips. I think don't get distracted with flavor, but use it. The rules shouldn't be over ornate or they shouldn't be overdone, but it's nice to have something that sort of approaches the theme. But as far as organization and structure of the rules, I've kind of developed a format that I apply to things. I always try to explain things in the way that you would explain them if you were actually teaching the game. So you have to put game elements where they would go if you were conversationally teaching the game to someone, and in that way the rules are going to be as easy to follow as if someone was standing there and teaching you the game. So it's all about putting things where the reader will get the most use out of them, and where the reader will sort of expect them to be. I don't know if I'm explaining that clearly, but it's kind of ironic considering I'm trying to explain clearly how to explain things clearly.
I'll get you off the hook here, John. I'm going to throw the question to Stephen. Again, I mean, we talked about rules. What about just like boards in general? I know you love maps and boards and all that kind of stuff. Any tips for people watching on what they should be trying to do to make a good board?
I guess it depends. Because the people watching, I imagine, are people sort of in our situations where you're trying to do art for your prototypes to be able to pitch it, I guess. And so for those people, I think that I often go to Google Images and just find a whole pile of stuff and just copy tons and tons of pictures, and then in a Photoshop file I'll just layer them all there as sort of my inspiration of what I want this to end up feeling like. And then I start doing the art for my board and mix as many layers on top of that until I get the feeling of those original sort of ideas that I searched out. I don't know if that's a good tip or not, but that's sort of where I start.
That's interesting.
Sorry, I've totally... Oops, there I am. Totally, this is the night of technical difficulties. My mouse just died about 5 minutes ago, so I've been scrambling around here looking for batteries, and so it's been sitting on that rules page for the last 5 minutes. So I totally apologize. Who's got the next question? I haven't been looking at the chat.
Well, to be honest, we're getting close to midnight. Actually, we are at midnight, so we're gonna have to wrap up real soon. But I guess I don't want to cut this too short. So, Josh, any tips? We've been asking a lot about art, but also design, because you are an accomplished designer. You got a couple of games coming up. Could you share a little bit about the design process, and especially how do you stay motivated? How do you keep making games?
Okay, I have to credit my motivation for game design to being a member of the Game Artisans of Canada. It's as simple as that. I mean, Dylan invited me years ago, and I wasn't very active in it, and I was kind of sort of designing games on the side, just kind of very, very on the side. And as I started to get more involved with this group, I just found that the community sort of drove me to design more and to focus on it more. That's my motivation. I don't know. The reason I design games is because I want to provoke certain interactions between people. I don't focus on a certain type of game. I like to kind of go all over the map. But when I think of a sort of an interesting way that people might interact with each other, an interesting conflict, an interesting I don't know, just an interesting way that people can compete with each other or collaborate with each other in a game space, then that's where a game design springs from for me. I always joke that I design a game title first, but that's not true. I design games interaction first. I think about what I want players to feel and how I want players to crash against each other in a game, and from there, that's where I design a game from. So my motivation is in bringing an interesting experience to someone. I don't necessarily like to have people do the same thing they did in another game. You always have to sort of cannibalize from other games, but always the hero, the main mechanism in the game, I try to make something unique that people are going to feel and go, oh, that's an interesting scenario that the designer has put me in. So that's my motivation, is to give people a new experience.
So let's throw the exact same question to Stephen. Where's your motivation coming from?
Well, my motivation is just coming from something within. You know, I just feel like I've got this stuff I want to get out, and I hope that that by being here, I can help to inspire people that have a passion for art. That if you want to do this, you know, you can just do it. There's two things I want to mention. The first is the biggest thing for me was when I decided that I wanted to start doing this is that you just got to get over your fears and get out there and start making friends and start talking to people. You know, that opened the doors for me, going to events, and then eventually joining the Game Artisans. And once you can surround yourself with a bunch of awesome people, everything just gets better and better and better. So, you know, just first, don't be scared and get out there and just try it. And then the second thing, in terms of actual art, all my stuff is Photoshop based, and it's all self-taught. And then often, you know, I'd find things I'm like, that art looks awesome, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna try it until I can figure out how they do that style. And then you see another style, and you're like, well, how do they do that? Just try doing something like that. I also went on and took some online Photoshop courses to learn some of the more technical stuff that you just can't self-teach. So I did something with through Bobby Chu's Imaginism Studios. I did a digital painting class through that, and that just helped get my skill set up in terms of just the technical, how do you actually accomplish these effects and stuff like that. So
send me that link, man.
Yeah.
Excellent. We got resource sharing already on the show. So sadly, we got to wrap up. I can't believe that the show is over, but I want to thank both Josh and Stephen, who I've had the honor of working with, and also just our great friends that I am honored to get to see the games they design and get to bounce my ideas off of. So, and I feel confident in saying on behalf of both Dylan and Sam, we appreciate you coming on the show, sharing advice. If anyone has more questions for them, you can find them on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, or fire questions our way and we can pass them on. I also want to give a shout out to the after show that will be airing soon. If people want to watch live, they're welcome to tune in. We'll post that link. And also, I have to give a shout out to the Nerd Nighters, who we really have learned from and are trying to improve our show, but we're kind of their after show. So please check out the Nerd Nighters, and finally a plug for our next 2 weeks coming up. For next week's show, we have we're reversing things. Jay Cormier is coming as a guest, and also we have Christopher Chung, who has a great game on Kickstarter called Lanterns. And a special host, we'll have Yves Tournier, designer of Blueprints and Northwest Passage. He'll be joining us as well, and the five of us will be talking a little bit about just game design, but also Essen, because Essen will be going on. So we'll share a little bit of what games we're looking forward to. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking co-op games, and we have Matt Leacock from Pandemic confirmed, and Jonathan Gilmore from Dead of Winter. So please tune in over the next couple of weeks. We have some excellent guests. Thanks. Good luck with your prototypes, and we'll talk to you soon.
What now? What do we do?